I think it's extraordinary that anyone has any ambivalence or any doubts about the fact that getting sick when you get old is a bad thing. I think, everyone accepts that getting sick in general is a bad thing, and they go to the hospital or the doctor when they do, and that's certainly true, however old they are, however long ago they were born. So the real mystery is that people can somehow make their peace with that, so long as it happens slowly or so long as it happens a little later for them than it does for other people. That seems to make no sense at all to me. It seems to me that the clear and obvious goal of medical research must be to eliminate that and to keep people in a completely healthy state, just like young adults, both looking and feeling and functioning like young adults, for as long as they live. Beer gives meaning to life. To be honest, it's completely crazy to suggest that death gives meaning to life. I mean, when people suggest that to me, what I often say is, take yourself back to the first time that you got laid, and think about what you were thinking at the time. Were you thinking, oh dear, I only have 60 or so years to live, I absolutely must get this person into bed at once? It's not something that drives people's ambition to succeed or to excel or anything. It's absolutely irrelevant. I think it's really crazy to think in terms of the psychological or social, for that matter, or economic or theological or any impact of living a long time in the context of this work. Because ultimately, the longevity benefits of bringing aging under biomedical control are, first of all, unknown. We don't know how long people are going to live. The planet could get hit by an asteroid any time. We just don't know what's going to happen. And secondly, it's something that's happening in the distant future. What we ought to focus on is the nearer-term consequences of bringing aging under medical control, which is people won't get sick. We will alleviate an astronomical amount of suffering. And any changes that might happen, demographic changes and consequences of those that might happen as a result of a lower mortality rate, a lower rate of people dying, will be very, very gradual. They will happen in the context of and in parallel with much more rapid changes caused by other technologies, for example, which we absolutely can't predict. So it's completely idiotic to try to base our decisions on the importance of this on things that we don't know. Some people say, well, perhaps God wants us to suffer somewhat so that we have something to understand what it is to be human or something. But I'm not proposing that we're going to eliminate all suffering by eliminating aging. That would be absurd. There's still going to be plenty of ways to suffer. There's going to be no shortage of that. And so I don't think literature or any other aspect of humanity is going to be altered at all by the elimination of one particular cause of a lot of suffering. I think it's completely extraordinary for anyone to really think, what's the point of all of this? I have no idea what I would do. The people who say that are the people who don't know what they're going to do next week. The people who spend all their lives in front of the television anyway. This is really a matter of education. Anyone who's got a good education has more to do than they have time to do. I've got at least 1,000 years of backlog already, and I'm sure that by the time I'm through it, I'll have another 10,000 years of backlog. So it's completely insane to try to think about what you're going to do. You're just not going to have any trouble finding interesting things to do. I find it incredibly frustrating that people, especially journalists, tend to be so fixated on talking about immortality or living forever when they describe my work and when they profile the Sense Foundation's operations, for example. Really, it's obvious that immortality is a word that has a well-established meaning. It's about having zero risk of death from any cause, however long you live. And we're not talking about that at all here. We're talking about minimizing the risk of death and disability from one particular cause, namely aging. So it's completely incorrect to use such a word. I believe that the main reason why journalists and other people are so fond of talking in those terms is that people know that it's something that can't be achieved technologically, biomedically, and therefore by essentially confusing the issue, by making it sound as though what I'm working on is also something that is, to all intents and purposes, unachievable, they sort of let the readership, the audience, maintain some kind of emotional distance from the whole thing and treat the whole thing as entertainment rather than as actual science, which is of course an enormous problem because it means that people don't actually agitate and work to hasten the development of these therapies.